Hello, my name is Norm Kidder. I'm with the Primitive Ways website, retired from the East Bay Regional Park District and Vice President of the Society of Primitive Technology. And we're talking today about making willow baskets. And we're starting off with the first part, which is the collecting of the willow. The willow species we're collecting is called sandbar willow, little gray willow, basket willow. Got a number of different names. Its Latin name is Salix exigua, and in this area it's subspecies Heinziana, and it grows in creeks and sandbars, as its name implies. It works better than any of the other willows for a number of reasons. For one thing, if you can see these shoots here, they're quite skinny. That's one aspect, so that they can make nice willows. They split, the bigger ones split well, so that you can get long split strips for the finer baskets. One of its characteristics, I don't know if you can get a close-up of it here, but if you cut through, get a close-up, when you cut through, you'll notice it has a very small pithy core. A lot of the other willows have a bigger pithy core, so that if you take the stem and you want to scrape it down, you scrape into the pithy core and all the strength goes away, and it just makes them stronger. If you take them, if you're in doubt and you're going out in the the winter time, summertime they're quite brittle because you have the two growth cycles. You have the slow winter growth of spring and fall growth, and you have rapid growth in the summertime. So the cells that are being produced under the bark in the summertime are quite large. And so at that time of the year, because the cells are big, they're also weak, and they make a brittle stem. But if you collect them in the wintertime, they had that slow end of the season growth put on over the top of the summer growth. And so the outer surface is much tougher. And the test, if you're looking for them in the wintertime, is if you can take and tie it in a knot, and it doesn't break, that's generally a good sign that it's the right stuff. Now, weeping willow, which is not native and grows where it's planted, also has really nice long thin stems like this that you can tie a knot in. The only trouble with weeping willow is that when it dries out, it becomes extremely brittle. So you can actually take a basket, I've done this, take a basket, if you squeeze it hard, you can crush it. Now, I'm told that if you take those stems and boil them before you use them, that makes them stronger. I haven't ever tried that. So here's our little gray willow, or sandbar willow, which we can tie a knot in. You can also tell you have the right stuff after you've harvested some. If you smell it, it has a really nice sweet smell to it that the other willows don't have. If you chew on any of the willows, they'll taste like aspirin, because the chemical that aspirin is made from comes from, among other things, willow bark. It's called salicylic acid. It's made into acetylsalicylic acid, which is named after Salix, which is the willow. So here's the stuff. Now, harvesting, once you find a good stand here, we're down along the creek. We're down almost in the creek. This tends to be growing where it actually floods, which means each year it gets flooded and broken, and you have to kind of see what it looks like each new season. Other kinds of willows tend to grow up a little bit higher up the creek, but you can find them mixed together. So you do have to pay attention to which one you're harvesting. The sandbar willow has, if I can find an old leaf on it here that's not from another plant. Here's one, still in place. The leaf of sandbar willow is quite small and narrow, and when they're alive, when the leaves are alive, they're a grayish green as opposed to a brighter green, and they're a little bit dusty looking, so they're not real shiny looking. So it's small, very linear leaves on it. And then check for the skinny stems. The other nice thing about it, it has very small leaf scars. If you can get it on the leaf scar. They're relatively small compared to other willows. And I'll see it later on. Maybe we can find one of the other willows and get a comparison shot. Okay, one thing to watch out for, another way to identify it too, is that this particular type of willow is host to a gall-forming insect, a little sawfly, I believe. And the female lays an egg on the stem while it's growing, and it produces a fat, stiff spot in the stem where the egg hatches out and a little critter, lives until it pupates. Those render that stem unusable, although you can cut the section off above it. We picked a stand here that doesn't have very many, if any, of those little galls on it. Let's see if I can find one. But you have to kind of watch out for bugs and other stiff places. They also get damaged from the action of the stream, and so sometimes they will have the bark peeled off and dried out on that side. So you need to look around. They're right here where we are. They're pretty common, so we can pick the good stuff. Another way to improve the stand is when you're done harvesting, you can clear cut the whole stand down during the winter time, and it will come up with lots of good fresh stuff. Now the fresh stuff, I think, is more attractive to the gall-forming insects. But if you keep at it, you'll end up with really tall stuff. Further down the creek, I harvested for years, and I ended up with straight shoots 8 feet tall, unbranched, that I could then split for use in the fine basketry and stuff. And we'll get into splitting maybe a little bit later if we find something splittable out here. Okay, so harvesting. You're looking for things that are real small and whippy. This is a big size right here, suitable for ribs on a bigger basket, a little bit big for a weaver. Weaver size, I'm looking more for something along this size, if you can see that. There's my clothes there. It's in the neighborhood of 1/8 of an inch in diameter or less, not much less. And you want them as long as possible. So this is the size range. This is big and more ideal right here. And they can go even a little bit smaller depending on what kind of basket you're making. If you're making small baskets, they can be even the size of what's beyond the fingers there. So now to harvest them, find a place. And within a stand like this, there'll be a sunny side and a shady side, and often the shady side will have longer shoots. They're struggling up to get sunlight. Or in the dense middle of a stand where it's shaded, they'll be struggling to get sunlight. And there'll be a side where they're all short, where the sun's hitting them and they don't have to grow. They'll be short and branchy. So you kind of look around within the stand and see if there's a better area for harvesting. Sometimes up high will be better, sometimes low. You just have to sit and develop an eye for picking out long stems. So here's, on this one, long stems up high. And so what I'll typically do is I'll bend this over, and if I'm doing quickly, I'll just break off, snap off the pieces that look good with a quick jerk, kind of downward jerking motion. I can just take them off without too much effort. Now sometimes they don't want to come off, and then I have a choice of either leaving them or using my clippers. Now the clippers allow me to take ones that might not otherwise be easily picked, or ones like this one where there's a branch and I don't want the area below the branch. I want the area only above the top branch. So the clippers are handy for hitting that piece. It's also too fat down below, so I'm going to have to cut that off later anyway. Now what I don't like about clippers is it takes up one of my hands, holding and keeping track of the clippers. So I like to harvest everything I can without clippers first, because I can hold the tree down with one hand and work my hands together to get off all of the easily harvested stuff. And then I'll come back afterwards and collect all the stuff that didn't